So now that you've learned how to connect to and work with the Twitter API, this challenge is going to be an opportunity to put that into practice. It's not a particularly complicated one, but it will require you to work through the Twitter documentation for its API and process the results that come out of it. Like with the previous challenge, I'm not going to show you my output in advance, so you have to figure out how you're going to make the Twitter client look. Essentially, the project that we're going to try and create is pretty simple. I want a Twitter client that displays the tweets on my timeline, but I only want to see the ones that have been favorited at least twice. And my aim for this, of course, is to filter out lots of tweets that I might not be interested in and just see the most popular ones. So that's the challenge. Just before I set you off to do that, might be worth having a quick Google of Twitter API endpoints. So an endpoint is essentially the URL where you can access Twitter, like statuses update, statuses home timeline, etc. And once you've done that Googling, it will take you to this page, and you can see we've got all the different URLs here to do all sorts of different things to do with the Twitter system. So that page you'll probably need. The other thing you'll probably want to do if you've just created a Twitter account is to follow a bunch of people. So I'm just going to follow whoever is suggested here. You'll get a different set of suggestions, of course, but that should give me a bit of a timeline to work with. Without that, then there won't be much to choose between. All right, so that's the challenge. Off you go, and best of luck. All right, I hope that went well. The first thing that we're going to need is to see how to get the user's timeline. That is, this set of tweets that will appear on the user's homepage. So if we have a look down at the various options within the Twitter API, so if we look back to our code, you can see that the API endpoint we used to get the user's tweets was statuses/home_timeline. So let's have a quick look at that one and see what it does. So home timeline, it returns a collection of the most recent tweets and retweets posted by the authenticated user and the users that they follow. So that's actually what we need to get the tweets themselves. So if we now have a look at that, because we've followed a bunch of people, we should have a lot more statuses on there than we had before. So I'm just going to get rid of the instruction to post because we don't want to post that every time we run our script. And yep, definitely looks like we've got a lot more information than we had before. So let's have a look. Wonderful. Yep, so we're definitely getting some tweets from various people there, the Bodleian Libraries, etc. Wonderful. And you can see we've got this very important variable, favorite count. So that's obviously what we're going to be using to tell whether or not a tweet is important enough for us to feature it in our client. So let's just tidy things up a little bit and then we'll start processing this. So first off, we're going to want to loop through the array that we've got here. So you can see we've got this 0 and then all the information for that particular tweet. And then after all of that, we've got a 1 and then the next tweet and then a 2, etc. So we want to loop through that array. So let's do that first off. We'll do that with a for each statuses as, and we don't actually need the number there, so I'm just going to do statuses as tweet. And then for now, we'll just print the tweet content. There we go. So that should give us something pretty similar, but it won't have the array at the top because we're just printing the content. All right, so let's try and get the text of each tweet for the moment. Now you might guess that to get the text, you would do something like text, like that, because that's how we normally access an array. Aha, but something's gone wrong here. This is a type std class, and we're trying to access it like an array. So we need to use a different formatting because this isn't quite an array, it's actually an object, which works slightly differently. But never fear. Let's do a quick Google and figure out how we would do it. So access elements in standard class object. PHP was what I was after there. Ah, there we go. How to access standard class object after a specific key value pair. Let's have a look. Aha! So to access that data, we actually use an arrow or a dash and a greater than sign, and then the name of the variable that we want. So again, that's because these are different sorts of variables to arrays, so we have to use a different syntax to extract the data that we want. So let's give that a try. We want to get the text. And then I'll just put in a line break as well. So it's one after the other. And I'm also going to open that in a new tab so that we keep the old one open as well. And there we go. So we don't actually need to view source because I put a BR in there. So now we've got the text of each of those tweets, and you can see we've got my two there as well, and then a bunch of other ones. All right, so now is the time to work out how many favorites each one has, and then only display the ones that have 2 or more. And if we scroll down, you can see we've got a favorite count here, but that's actually the favorite count for the user, not for that particular tweet. So that's not what we want. If we keep on going, then we've got the favorite count right there. Wonderful. So that's what we need. Wonderful. So that's what we need. So instead of tweet text, we'll use tweet and favorite count. Let's just have a look and check that that's returning the number that we're after. Wonderful. There we go. So we've got a whole range there. I wonder what that exciting tweet is. Let's have a look. So we want to check to see if the tweet favorite count is greater than or equal to 2, then we'll echo. We don't actually need to use print r this time because it's just a string. Favorite count. And next to that, we'll put the tweet text as well. And then we'll move the line break into the if statement. And have a look. Oops, something's gone horribly wrong. Oh, sadly, I can't spell favorite the way I want to. Fair enough. There we go. So now we've got our favorite count and our tweet text. If you're interested, that very popular one was recovered from the Brit Awards. And then there's another surprisingly popular one about Grimsby as well. So this is pretty good, but it's not the sort of thing I would want to look at every day. It's not particularly pretty, and it doesn't even tell me who made the tweet. So I wonder if there's a way I can display a single tweet nicely. So I've cheated slightly because it's not the most obvious one, but I know that status's oembed is what we need there. So this returns a single tweet specified by the web URL or the ID in an oembed format. So it's an HTML snippet that we can include directly on our page. So we're going to need to pass that the ID of our tweet, and we do that in the ID variable. So that should be reasonably straightforward. Let's do that here. So we get the tweet ID like that. And then I'm going to copy that page there, but we'll change this to just status. And then instead of statuses / home timeline, we want to use statuses / o embed. And then we want to give an ID, and that ID is going to be tweet ID, and we don't want to send this exclude replies variable. And then I'll just close the square bracket there. And because we don't know quite what we're going to get, let's print the whole thing. Okay, let's take a look. All right, that's looking good. And you can see we're actually getting nice HTML of all of these tweets now. That looks a lot more pleasant. So let's have a look. Where do we get that HTML? It's in the HTML field. Makes sense? So let's echo that instead. So it's going to be status, arrow, HTML. Let's take a look. It'll take a little while to encode them, but there we go. So all in a nice, pretty HTML-ified format. And that is only the ones with more than one favorite. So that's as far as we go. So that's as far as I'm going to go with this Twitter client. You're welcome to make it pretty, put a nice background and a nav bar up the top if you want, but we've done that enough times now for you to know how to do it. And it also brings us to the end of the APIs section of the course. So we've learned how to get the weather, how to access Google Maps using our API key, and how to log into the Twitter API via OAuth. So those are 3 different types of API, but all of them very powerful and actually pretty easy to use once you know how. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope you're getting a lot of exciting ideas of how you could use these powerful web APIs in your websites and web apps. And we're going to be moving on to see how we can make actual apps for the App Store and Google Play Store purely out of HTML. We'll see how to do that in the next section.